by Rabe, Chandrakashan, and Nikolic. Right. So there are three authors. This is a very good book, as I said in the last meeting, and you can purchase this book. Now, yeah. Now, apart from gathering the subject knowledge, we will also focus ourselves to designing these ICs using some electronic design and automation tools, right? So these are called EDA tools, that is electronic design and automation tools, and they have their importance. And because you see that the complexity of the integrated circuits, so that has increased to an extent that without these EDA tools, that is electronic design automation tools, you cannot think about designing a digital IC today, yeah, because it has millions of gates now, not millions, but trillions of gates are there present today on a microprocessor. So obviously you need some electronic design automation tools, and you cannot handcraft everything. So we'll also have an exposure of these EDA tools. So the first tool that you would see, I'll in fact give you the student version of these tools. So I have the some old copies of student version of these tools. So I'll share with you. So number one is a backend tool which is called a layout design tool, right? So you will make the layouts of your digital IC, whatever circuit you want to fabricate. So for that circuit, you will have to, or you are required to draw the layout, right? So because the foundry which would be fabricating your circuit, or which would be fabricating your digital IC, so that only understands the layouts. So one has to provide the layouts, and from the layout, the fabrication unit, they extract the GDS2, it is called netlist, and from that netlist they prepare the mask, and from the mask they fabricate the ICs. Yeah? So we have to learn, we will learn in this course how to draw or design the layouts. Then second tool that you would be exposed to will be SPICE, yeah, simulated program with integrated circuit emphasis, right? So here you will perform in this program, you will perform the circuit based simulations, right? So you can simulate the circuit response, or the on the given inputs, you can find out the output of your circuit, a digital circuit or maybe analog circuit. So all kind of circuits can be simulated. In fact, in your BTech programs, some of you, in fact everybody I think might have used this SPICE, okay, for circuit simulation. So I'll just give a small brief on this software also, SPICE, how to use it, and then I'll also share the student version copy of this SPICE with you. So the aim of this SPICE would be, as I said, that you have to perform the circuit level simulations, and from this layout design tool, you will extract the parasitics of your circuit. So whatever circuit you design, and then you draw the layout of that circuit, and that layout obviously contains wires and transistors, right? So circuit is composed of transistors and wires. So for those transistors and wires, you draw the layout, and then the second step is to extract the parasitics, right? To extract the uh, parasitics. Maybe I'm using a mouse, so maybe I'm not able to write that much properly, but yes, I think it is visible. So from the layout, you will extract the parasitics. So these parasitics normally are resistance, capacitance, or inductances, right? So these parasitics you will extract from the layout, whatever layout you have drawn in the layout design tool. You will extract these parasitics and then use these parasitics in your circuit, okay, in the SPICE simulation. So these parasitics you will put in to your circuit simulation in the SPICE simulation. Then you will perform the comparison between how the circuit behaves without these parasitics and how the circuit behaves with the parasitics. So obviously there will be a huge change in the parasitics when you include them in the circuit simulations. Then the third tool that I would share with you will be based on front-end design. So in fact, as I said, that you also have a lab running in this semester based on, I think, Verilog or VHDL. So here you will learn how to design your digital circuit, and then you have to perform two things, that is synthesis of your code. You write the behavior of your function in as a code in VHDL or Verilog, and then you perform the synthesis of your code, and after synthesis is successfully completed, you perform the simulations. Right? So two things are required to be done here: synthesis and simulation. Right? So all these things you will learn in this course. Then for layout designing, you will use layout editor, that is L-Edit from Tanner EDA tool. So I have the student version copy of this tool and I will share it with you. Now similar kind of layout editors are present in almost all industry based software. So for example, in our lab we have Mentor Graphics, we have Cadence. So all these tools, that is Cadence and Mentor Graphics, they also use a similar layout editor tool, that is L-Edit here, for example. So these are in our lab. We have purchased them, but unfortunately the lab will not be accessible to you in this semester, I hope, because institute is not open yet. So anyhow, you will utilize this layout editor, which I will share with you, a student version copy of this. So you will draw your layout on this software, L-Edit. Software's name is L-Edit. And for SPICE simulations, you will either use student version copy of OrCAD PSpice, which is used in this Cadence. So SPICE software, that is OrCAD PSpice, which is used in Cadence design tools. So that we will utilize, or we will utilize another SPICE software, which is also open source free, and the software's name is AimSpice. Right? So you will utilize either OrCAD PSpice student version copy, or you will utilize this AimSpice, which is also a freeware. Any of the these two we will utilize. Right? Then for designing your circuit using HDL languages, so here you will utilize Xilinx ISE Webpack, right? So earlier Xilinx ISE Webpack had to be interfaced with ModelSim. So ModelSim is a simulator which will simulate your digital integrated circuit, and here you can verify the timing waveforms. So earlier the Xilinx ISE Webpack and ModelSim, they had to be downloaded separately, and then they had to be interfaced. But now things have improved, and Xilinx has come up with a pack where a simulator of this kind, that is ModelSim, is already integrated. So that simulator is now called iSim. So you will download this Xilinx ISE Webpack. So it's a big software. So somewhere around, I think, 3 to 5 GB. So this you will download from a website. So I'll share from where you will download. And this Xilinx, software is very popular and being used in almost all universities, good universities around the globe. And this model sim, you will find that this is also a very popular software, and it is used in almost yeah, I think it's used in these three industry-based EDA tools. That is, Cadence also uses model sim. Then Mentor also uses Mentor Graphics, and Synopsys also uses this model sim for timing verification or for simulation of your circuits, right? Then coming on to the reference books, apart from the textbook, so you may also refer these books. That is, number one, we have this book, which title is Crystal Integrated Circuits by, oh, this is the same book, this is your textbook, right? So this is your textbook, so you can purchase this book, very good book, as I said. And yeah, so it's a very good book, so you can purchase this book. Then apart from this book, we have some reference books also. So for example, this one, that is Principles of CMOS VLSI Design, by the authors are Weste and Ishragian, Kamran Ishragian and Neil Weste. So it's also a very good book, especially on the layouts part, right? So very deeply this layout and how to draw the layout and the existing techniques. So they have been discussed very deeply here in this book. Very good book, this one. Then another reference book could be CMOS VLSI designed by Weste and Harris, right? And for PSpice, you can refer this book, that is PSpice using ORCAD by MH Rashid. Or maybe for learning PSpice, you can also download. There are many tutorials, many ebooks are present over the web. So you can download them freely. In fact, I will also share some tutorials on this PSpice. And then for VHDL or Verilog, you may refer to this book by J. Bhaskar, that is VHDL Primer. So this book you can consult, or maybe you can also consult, download tutorials, and there are many ebooks also available on the web. Similar to this PSpice, there are ebooks available on the web for learning VHDL also. Maybe I'll share some material with you on this VHDL and PSpice. And then apart from all these references, you will also need to learn many things from the web, right? So plenty of material from the internet will also be taken, and I will encourage you to learn things yourself also, by yourself also. Yeah. Then let us talk about what you will learn in this course. So you see that today, I think all systems, so everything is now being converted into digital. So for example, if we talk about telecommunication systems, right? So they are also digital today, right? So it has been a revolution since last 20 decades, sorry, 2 decades, last 20 years. It has been a revolution to convert all systems, all services into digital systems and digital services, right? So from the telecommunication systems, uh, you know, uh, to many other applications, the revolution is still going on. And it all started with, you can say, with the invention of your compact disc, right? So you know that CDs can store information in digital format, right? So one can also store the music or maybe video data on the CDs or DVDs. And these are analog signals, right? So they are converted into digital formats and stored into digital formats, like for example CDs and DVDs. So there has been a huge revolution, and that is why we will focus on learning how to design these digital circuits, right? So in this book you will find that the information on CMOS devices. In fact, today you will find that all integrated circuits are fabricated or designed using CMOS devices. So earlier, long time back, maybe 30 years back or 20 years back, when this technology was not there, CMOS, so people used to fabricate the digital ICs using only NMOS or maybe a PMOS or maybe TTL and ECL. So these were popular that time. So all the circuits were fabricated using those technologies. But then later on you will find that this CMOS became more popular because of many reasons. One of the reasons are that you can accommodate more devices, more transistors. That is, the integration density on the chip could be high. Right? So in this course you will learn about the CMOS devices and the manufacturing technologies. So yeah, so CMOS devices and the manufacturing technology, that is how to manufacture these CMOS devices. So manufacturing technology is very important, because until and unless you have a manufacturing technology, or what we call as process technology, you cannot think of designing and then fabricating an integrated circuit. You have something in your mind that you will make some IC or some circuit using some devices, but then you'll have to come up with a full proof of some process. That is, that process should explain how you will fabricate your circuit. Yeah? So that is very important, and that manufacturing technology, that is process technology, so that covers this thing, that is how you are going to fabricate that circuit. So that is being explained, or that is being covered by this manufacturing technology. Yeah? So there are many steps in fabricating an IC. More than 300 steps are there, and I think more than 100 masks you have to prepare for fabricating an IC. Then we'll also talk about CMOS inverters, right? So these are basic gate. This is a basic gate CMOS inverter. So we will perform all sort of analysis on CMOS inverters. So it's a basic gate, so easy to perform analysis on the CMOS inverter. And then when we are done with performing all kinds of analysis on CMOS inverters, so similar thing can be done with the other complex logic functions and gates, right? So you have to learn at least all sort of analysis that could be performed on one simple gate, and then you can transfer the same knowledge or same analysis to the other gates. So other gates can be also analyzed in a similar way. So that is why this is important, CMOS inverter and the analysis that we will perform on this CMOS inverters. So what kind of analysis we will perform? We will be interested in learning about the propagation delay. So how to calculate propagation delay, and what are the factors that contribute to the propagation delay of a gate. So we will learn that. Then we'll also talk about the noise margin calculations. What is noise margin, their importance, and how to calculate the noise margin for this basic gate, that is CMOS inverter. And as I said, that once you learn how to calculate all these propagation delay, noise margins, or maybe power dissipation, similar analysis can be transferred to any gate or any other complex logic function. Okay? So we will learn how to calculate the propagation delay, the factors which govern the propagation delay, the factors which govern the noise margins, the calculation of noise margins, power dissipation. What are the factors that control the power dissipation? So all these things we will perform on combinational logic gates. So CMOS inverter, for example, we'll start with. And after this combinational analysis, we will come on to the sequential circuits. Right. So sequential circuits, that is, you might be knowing that they work in a sequence. That is, the output of the gate which is connected, or the output of, maybe let's say if there are 3 gates connected, so all gate inputs or the outputs depend upon the output of the previous gate which is connected in series, right? So for example, I have 3 inverters, let us say, connected in series.
हेलो हेलो हेलो
नेटवर्क इशू हो रहा है क्या?
आई थिंक सर का हो रहा है।
वॉइस नहीं आ रही ना, कुछ भी नहीं है।
हाँ
रिफ्रेश किया किसी ने?
सर का इशू है, सर का। सर आई थिंक सर के एंड से कुछ इशू है नेटवर्क का।
हम लोग की तो आपस में सुना ही दे रही है, यानी हम लोग ठीक हैं।
हम लोग ठीक है।
सर म्यूट किए हैं, सर ने अपना म्यूट किया है।
Maybe some registers are connected. The synchronization is controlled by a clock. But yes, each flip-flop or maybe each register is waiting for the output from the previous registers, right? So we will talk about sequential circuits when we finish the combinational circuits. Then we'll also talk about the interconnects, so which is very important today. So interconnects are basically wires which are used to connect either to logic gates or maybe to devices, right? So we'll talk about the problems with the interconnects today. You will find that the interconnect delay has also become very important. Apart from the gate delay or maybe the device delay, interconnect delays, that is, these interconnects are associated with some parasitics, for example, RLC. So these parasitics also affect the delay of these lines. In fact, you will find that the delay which is being offered by interconnect now is larger than the delay which is offered by a gate. Okay? And then we'll talk about memories, SRAMs, DRAMs, PLAs, programmable logic arrays, and the design methodologies. So this design methodology is again an important thing. That is how you will design your digital circuit. What are the methodologies which are present? So you will learn all these things in this course. So apart from all this, you will also learn, or you will develop an understanding of designing and optimizing digital circuits. Right? So designing, how to design for, you will be given some performance metrics So for example, somebody says that you have to design a circuit which has a power consumption of at least, let's say, 1 milliwatt, or maybe it has a delay of, let's say, less than 10 nanoseconds, right? So these are, for example, the power metrics, right? So we will understand and we will learn how to design the circuit with the quality metrics, these quality metrics, okay? And we'll also learn how to optimize. Apart from designing, we will also learn how to optimize our digital circuits with respect to different quality metrics, and these quality metrics are very important. And the quality metrics could be the cost of the circuit, speed of your circuit, power dissipation, and reliability. So these are the quality metrics for any circuit, not just digital circuits. In fact, for any circuit or any IC, there would be some quality metrics, and these quality metrics are very common. That is, number one, you need to optimize your circuit so that the cost of that circuit comes down. Yeah. So nobody wants to buy a costly product. Everybody wants cheap products, which is less costly. So the cost also depends upon how you design the circuit, and also how you optimize your circuit in terms of, if you make a very big layout of your IC, so that layout of that IC will consume a large amount of silicon wafer, and silicon wafer is costly. So you have to optimize your circuit not just for the area but also for speed. Nobody wants a slow circuit, slow design. Whenever you go for purchasing a microprocessor, you purchase a laptop or maybe you purchase a computer, you always look for speed. How much is the speed? That is in terms of gigahertz today. So you will always prefer to buy maybe a 3 gigahertz system rather than settling yourself to a lower speed, maybe 1 gigahertz, right? So everybody wants a high speed system. Nobody wants a low speed system. So obviously, this quality matrix contains the speed of the system. Then power dissipation. Yeah. So this is also one of the quality metrics. For example, we are using the mobile phones today. The laptops also have batteries. Mobile phones also have batteries, and we don't want our mobile phones or laptops to consume huge amount of power, right? So we want at least the mobile to sustain, the battery to sustain at least for full day. Right? So this is only possible when the power dissipation, that is power consumption and power dissipation. In fact, power dissipation, when we say, so it means power consumption and heat generation. Yeah? Two things are involved in power dissipation. That is how much power is consumed per function and how much heat is dissipated when executing that function. Okay. So power dissipation is important because for handheld devices, as I said, that there is a limited battery and you don't want your battery to drain up very quickly. So you want circuits, or you want a mobile phone which consumes less power. Yeah? So obviously that is only possible when the circuit which is inside your mobile phone, that is digital integrated circuit which is inside your mobile phone, so that consumes less power, then only it is possible. So one has to learn how to design circuits which consume less power and how to optimize circuits so that the power consumption can be, or power dissipation can be brought down. Right? Then the next very important quality metric is reliability. Right? This is very important, and I think this is one of the important quality metrics, because this reliability would actually mean that the circuit that you are designing, so that should be reliable in terms of it should do only what you want to, right? So whatever circuit you have designed, so that should do only what you want to, and it should not do what you don't want to do. Right? So for example, you have designed maybe a multiplexer, let us say, right? So that multiplexer should behave like a multiplexer. So finally, when you test that multiplexer, so that multiplexer should behave like a multiplexer. And if it doesn't behave, so it's a waste then. Right? So my circuit should be reliable. That is, whatever I design, it should behave like the same. So we'll talk about what are the reliability concerns and how the circuits can be made more reliable. So that will also be covered. In fact, that is one of the aims of this course, to make you learn how to make reliable circuits. Right? Then let us talk about how we will go ahead in this course. In fact, we will, as I said, generously follow this textbook, and you will find that in the first few lectures, we'll talk about the introduction. And in the introduction of digital ICs, we will talk about the existing issues in digital design. So what are the issues with the digital design? What are the problems in the digital design? So we'll talk about them. Then in the next few lectures, we'll talk about the CMOS inverter. And as I said, that we will learn to perform all sort of analysis. That is, we'll learn how to design and optimize and all techniques which are existing to reduce the power consumption, delay, and noise margin. So everything will be, all these kind of analysis will be performed on this CMOS inverters. Then in the next few lectures, we'll talk about various combinational logic structures. And after that, we will come on to the sequential logic gates, which are synchronized, as I said, by some clock signal. And you have some sort of feedback mechanism. Then we'll talk about the design methodologies. So what are the existing design methodologies? That is your semi-custom and full custom methods, the IP-based standard cell methods. So how to design a digital IC. So that will be covered in design methodologies. Then we'll talk about the interconnects. Right. So this is very important section, as I said, because the interconnects, the performance of an interconnect is now dominating the performance of a gate today. So we'll learn about the parasitics of these interconnects, then how to model these interconnects, how to extract the parasitics R, L, and C, and then how to use them in your circuit. Then after that, we will come on to this section, which is the most important, timing. Right. So this is the most important section, timing. And you will admit that if the timing doesn't matches, then the whole circuit is a waste, right? Because you will find that, let us say that you have on your chip, 3 components are placed on your chip, and let us say you are also applying a clock to all these 3 components, right? And these 3 components are present on 3 different locations, the chip, right? Now I'm applying clock. So because of the distance that clock has to, cover, right? So for example, this one, number 1 component is the closest to the clock. So obviously the clock will reach this number 1 component before it reaches 2 and 3. Right? So these are 3 components, and the clock is applied. So because of the location of these components and the clock source, so the clock source is sitting over here. So because of the location of clock source and these components on the chip, the clock arrival times will be different. And we don't want this. Okay? Because the clock is coming here early, we want the clock to arrive at all these 3 components at the same time. So there is some sort of delay and there is a mismatch. So obviously this delay will, it's not acceptable, because the output of this gate will come at some instance, let us say at 1 nanosecond, the output comes, and at the same 1 nanosecond, I want the output to come from 2 and 3 also, right? But since there is a delay in the clock which is arriving here, so the 2's output, that is the component number 2 and 3, will not give output at 1 nanosecond. Maybe they give it, let us say 1.1 nanosecond, the output comes, and 1.2 nanosecond, let us say, because of this clock delay. And I want the output of all these 3 gates to come at 1 nanosecond, because these outputs are finally connected to some other, let's say logic block here, right? So these have to be at 1 nanosecond, but they are arriving late. And let us say since they are coming late, so whatever is present at 1 nanosecond at these 2 inputs, it will be processed and the output will be generated. And then after 1.1 nanosecond, this input changes. So again, the output will change here after 1.1 nanosecond. Then 1.2 nanosecond, let us say this output comes here, which is the input of this one. So again, the output will change for this component. So the output will keep on changing for this component. It is not stable. So this is unacceptable, and this will lead to the failure of your complete digital IC. We don't want that. So timing is very important. So we'll talk about timing issues in digital IC when we come on to this section. Then we'll also talk about arithmetic building blocks, and also we'll talk about memories and array structures, right? How to design memories and what are the existing memory and array of memories. For example, we have PAL, programmable and logic. So you have array of AND gates there, right? So all these things we will cover in memories, static memory, dynamic memories, right? So all these things we will cover in this section. Then let us say, or let us try to answer this question. That is, the question is that why is digital ICs different today than it was before, right? So why the ICs are different today than it was before? So this is a very important question that comes in the mind of any designer. So what are the changes and why it is different? So you will find that 20 years back, right? If you go 20 years back, and if you talk about microprocessors, okay. So if you talk about microprocessors which were present 20 years back, so we didn't had i7 that time. Yeah, we didn't had i5. In fact, we also didn't had dual cores, right? Or maybe what you call as core 2. So what we had earlier were single core processors were present, right? Single core processors were present. So 20 years back, single core microprocessor were present. Now we have 8 core. So this is i7 is 8 core microprocessors. That is, you have 8 microprocessors present in just one chip. So one chip has today 8 processors. Yeah? So this is, let us say, one chip. So it has today 8 processors, right? So this is quad, 4 processors. So similarly, you have 8. Yeah? This is quad. So today we have quad core or maybe 8 core microprocessors available. Yeah. So imagine a single core microprocessor, let us say it has, if 1 million transistors, okay, 1 million transistors if are present in a single core microprocessor. So obviously a 8 core microprocessor will have 8 million transistors, right? So you have 8 million transistors in 8 core microprocessor, right? So that means with the increase in number of transistors, so it obviously means the complexity of your circuit has increased, right? So in fact, you go back a little more earlier, we had when 8085 microprocessors or maybe 8086 microprocessors, right? So it had, I think somewhere around 1000 to 10,000 transistors were only there in those microprocessors. Intel 4004, it had only 1000 transistors. So what has changed today and how today's world is different than it was before is the complexity. That is the complexity of my integrated circuit has increased. And it has increased to a very high, very big extent, a large extent. The complexity has increased. So complexity in terms of the functionality, that is the number of functions or the number of operations you can perform, that has gone up very, very rapidly. So earlier, as I said, we had microprocessors or maybe circuits which had transistors in the range of maybe 1000 to 10,000. Today we are in an era where trillions of transistors are in a microprocessor. Okay? Not just million. So million is a wrong number. There are trillions of transistors today on a single CPU, IC. So that is how it is different, and it is also difficult to design circuits with such complexity. That is trillions of transistors on just one chip, and that one chip is only maybe few millimeters square. The area is few millimeters square. Now the next question is, will this thing change in future? So the answer would be that this will not change in future. In fact, you will find that the complexity requirement or the complexity will go up further, and this complexity depends on our requirement, right? So the complexity of the digital IC depends on our requirement. That is, we as a user want our systems to be very fast, right? And we want more functionality in our system. So for example, as I said that earlier we had a single core system and we wanted a more fast system. So the companies came up with this concept of dual core or maybe 4 core or 8 core, right? So they cannot increase the speed. So one would say that why don't you increase the speed of the microprocessor, and instead why you are fabricating more cores on the same IC, right? So why not increase the system's speed? So speed means here obviously clock speed. So a microprocessor's performance is given by its clock speed. If it has a high clock speed, so obviously the performance will be very good. The microprocessor will be very fast. Yeah, so for example, when you go to the market, you purchase laptop or maybe computer, you say that I want a system which has a very high clock speed, that is maybe 3 gigahertz or 4 gigahertz. And in the market, you will find that there are no systems existing which have a speed greater than, I think, 3 or maybe 4 gigahertz. You won't find a microprocessor or a laptop which has a processor which has a speed greater than 4 gigahertz. 5 gigahertz and 6 gigahertz microprocessor, they don't exist. So there is a reason why they don't exist, and to overcome this thing, that is, you cannot raise the speed. So to add more functionality and to make your system more better, the companies came up with the concept of dual cores and then 4 cores and 8 cores. Yeah? So cores are being increased instead of increasing the speed or frequency of the clock in your microprocessor, because it was found earlier that when you increase the speed of the microprocessor by raising the clock, the microprocessors were getting very hot and they were even burning. And you will also admit that we have a heat sink kind of system in every desktop or every laptop, so which is attached to the microprocessor to take away the heat from the microprocessor, right? So the heat which is produced by a microprocessor is transferred to the heat sink so that the micro
Sir, you're not audible.
Yeah, if you have any questions, then maybe you can ask. So if you have any queries, so otherwise the meeting is ended.
Sir, sir, I have a question.
Please.
So what is actually core is, sir? You're saying quad core, octa core. What is actually core?
Yeah, so core means you have, for example, I say dual core, so that means there are two processors in the same chip.
Okay.
Two physical processors on the same chip.
Means the simultaneously
So
both are working, right?
yeah, both are working simultaneously, and that also depends upon what kind of operating system you are providing. So if you provide a 32-bit operating system, I think the two processors will not. Is it audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that also depends upon your operating system. So if your operating system is, for example, 32-bit, then only I think one core will be utilized to the full extent. Other core will not be utilized. So operating system actually controls these cores. So if you have a 8-core system and you install an operating system which is 32-bit, which doesn't support many cores, so only one core will be working and the others will be sitting idle. So you have to install a suitable operating system which is 64-bit. So that will enable all the cores to work in parallel on a particular program. So your system will become fast, right? For example, single core, yeah. So for example, single core takes, let's say, some time, let's say 10 nanoseconds to execute a program, and you have 8 cores. So maybe when they are working on parallel on the same program, the time can be brought down from 10 nanoseconds to maybe 4 or 5 nanoseconds.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, I normally record my lectures, so the video will be shared with you. Any other queries? Yeah, if you have no queries, then maybe you can disconnect.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, Samiran. Yeah, please say.
Today we are used only the faster. We mainly use the upgrade the clock speed. So anyway, we cannot upgrade the clock speed to faster performance.
Yeah, so earlier companies, these companies like Intel and AMD, everybody wants a high-speed system. So these companies, Intel and AMD, they try to increase the clock speed of the microprocessors. But what they found that after going above 4 gigahertz, the systems were becoming very hot. Yeah, so obviously, when you try to do anything fast, even in the real life, if you see that if you try to run fast, right, so you will sweat more. Your body will heat more. So similarly here, when the digital circuits, they try to perform functions at a very high speed, so the circuit also gets hot. Power consumption also increases and the circuit also becomes very hot. So if the circuit becomes hot, there are possibilities that it can burn. And the heat which is dissipated, so that is of the order of somewhere around 200 to 300 watts. So this is very huge. Yeah, too much. 200 to 300 watts. 100 watt heat is produced at the surface of the hot plate. That is the induction top which we are using in our homes, in the kitchens, right? So the temperature of that surface of that hot plate, so that is somewhere around 100 watts. So it is very huge. The circuits can easily burn. So that is what was understood by these companies. So they stopped raising the speed of the microprocessor. So instead they come up with this another design technique, that is they introduce the concept of multi-threading and multitasking. So this multi-threading can be done in the single processor obviously, but this multitasking cannot be done if I have just a single processor. So for that multitasking, they required at least more than two processors. Yeah, two or more than two processors for multitasking. That is, if two processors can work on the same program or same problem, the work can be finished quickly. Right now, two separate physical processors. So that is also not a feasible solution. So two physical processors, they again is a costly business, and also the motherboard which we normally utilize in our laptop and a desktop, you will find that there is only one slot for microprocessor. If you make 8 slots, then the motherboard size will also go up and the system size will also go up. So it will not be a compact system. So that is why the companies came up with this core kind of thing. That is, on the same chip, you have 8 cores, that is 8 physical processors on the same chip, okay? Or a multi-core system. So that multitasking, that is same task, can be performed on 8 processors instead of one processor. So if you do that, then you can save some time. So that is the concept which came up and which is in use instead of raising up the clock frequencies.
Sir, I have a query. Sir, could you please brief on timing, that how timing works?
So timing is important. As I said, for example, that example which I gave you, that is, you have a clock and you have 3 components, and you want the clock to arrive at all those three components at the same time. Yeah, and the output of those 3 components has to be connected, at the same instant to some other logics. Okay, because those logics also need some inputs. So the outputs from those 3 components have to be connected to the other components, yeah, at the same instant. So if they do not arrive at the same instant, the clock does not arrive at the same instant, the outputs which are supplied by those components will be different. We want, let's say, 111 at 1 nanosecond, and it is 100 at 1 nanosecond. So 100 will be processed instead of 111, right? So obviously the circuit
Okay.
will give the errors. Yeah, there are errors. I mean, the circuit will not function as desired. So timing is very important. So at each nanosecond, not just the output of one gate, there are millions of gates. So at the output of all those millions of gates, I must know at what instant the output would be. At what time the output will be at those millions of gates. Okay. So depending upon this timing in the timing waveform verification, we say that circuit can perform well, and if the timing doesn't match it, then we'll have to fix the circuit once again.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else?
Yes.
Sir.
Hello, sir.
Thank you. And yes,
Sir.
one more question. And sir, you said what is a propagation delay? Sir, so what is that?
We'll come on to this propagation delay. So simple definition for this propagation delay is time required for output to appear after the input have appeared. That is, there is a time lag when the input change and when the output are available. Right. So this is propagation delay. So we'll talk about propagation delay. It depends upon, there are two factors. When we talk about CMOS inverter, you will find that it depends upon the time the output goes from high to low, and then time it goes from low to high, and then you take an average of these two times to find the propagation delay. So we'll come to know propagation delay, but yes, in simple words, you can say that propagation delay is time it requires for output to appear after the input change.
Okay.
Sir,
Sir, thank you, sir.
Sir, I have a doubt, sir.
Okay, please.
Sir, if you are not using the complete processing power of 8 cores, some cores are idle, then will they use power if they are not being used? If few cores are not being used, will they still use power?
They will still use power, but not that much. I mean, in the idle state also they will use some power, and if you use them 100%, the power requirement will be going up. I mean, they will extract obviously more power. So they are not functioning, they will not use much power. They are functioning, they will use power. Yeah, more
Okay, sir.
power. So more functions require more power.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Hello, sir. I have a question, sir.
Yeah, please ask.
Sir, are the cores of the processor actually work simultaneously, or there is a time delay between them? If they, sir, work parallelly for a task.
So obviously there will be some timing mismatch between the cores. So they will be working on the same problem, let us say. So that is again controlled by operating system, right? So sometimes you will see that some core has to sit idle because it is waiting for the inputs which have to be supplied from the process which is executing on the first core. So until and unless first core executes that portion of the task which has been assigned, because the outputs will be generated from the tasks which are being assigned to processor number 1. So until it generates those outputs and supplies them as an input to processor 2, that processor 2 has to sit ideally. Right? So all these things are again handled by the operating system. So it is not that all the if you are assigning a task parallelly to all the microprocessors, you will find that all the microprocessors are utilizing 100% of their efficiency. Maybe some are sitting idle because they are waiting for the outputs from the processes which are running on the other processors.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, anything else?
Sir, there is one doubt, sir. You are saying that the number of transistors in a single chip now in trillions.
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, sir. So, sir, we cannot increase further than trillions, or you can say there is a speed limit also. We cannot increase the speed further because it can like burn the IC.
speed improvement, the companies like Intel and AMD, they have stopped, doing research on how to increase the speed, because they have known it earlier by their research that speed, if you increase, they can increase speed. But the thing is that, as I said, systems were heating. So if you can provide a good heat sink which can absorb heat from your system, then obviously you can think about increasing the speed. But then the size of that heat sink, that becomes very huge. You can increase speed, no doubt. You can make a 10 gigahertz processor, but then you will also have to do some research on how to make that 10 gigahertz processor cool. So for cooling that, you need some heat sink, and the size of the heat sinks will be very huge. Maybe in a laptop, if you use a 10 gigahertz processor, so the size of the heat sink could be even bigger than a laptop. So that is why these industries like Intel and AMD, the companies, they stopped increasing the speed, and instead they started focusing on multitasking things, multitasking and multi-threading, which is possible by if you have more cores, that is more processors on the same chip. So they are trying to improve the performance of the system by bringing the concept of multi-core. Yeah. Anything else?
So multi-core means, can you please little bit elaborate this?
A multi-core means there are more processors, not just one single processor. Single core means one processor. Multi-core means, let's say I say dual core or 2 core or maybe 8 core. 8 core means there are 8 physical processors on the same chip, right? So the chip size is same, but there are 8 processors. So this is only possible if the integration density is very high. That is the number of transistors that can be incorporated on a single chip. So if that integration density can be high, then only you can think about having 8 cores. 8 cores obviously means more functionality. You are providing more functionality on the same chip, so which is possible only when integration density is high or the transistors are smaller. So if you have small transistors, so obviously you can accommodate more transistors. So we will come to know about how to make transistors small when we talk about scaling the devices. Anything else?
Sir, how we generate such a high frequency that we apply on a processor?
So there are, clock frequency generation mechanisms. So there is a generator present on each chip, clock generation. In fact, for a microprocessor, you have to design, when you're designing for frequencies, so frequency depends upon many factors. So those factors could be what is the input, how frequently the inputs are changing, rise time, fall time, setup times, hold time. So many things are involved in deciding the microprocessor frequency. And regarding clock generation, there are techniques how to generate an on-chip clock, and not just one clock. In fact, today's chip have more than one clock generation scheme. In fact, if you look at FPGAs, which you will have in the lab, so they also have, I think, 3 or 4 clocks. So there are clock generation techniques by which clocks can be generated on board.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? So if you have no queries, then maybe you can disconnect, as you might have another class. And if you have questions, then maybe you can ask.
Sir, hello. One more question arises.
Please.
Sir, which tool we use in the lab for like EDA tools that for designing the circuit actually?
So in the lab, I think we have around 10 softwares where you can design a circuit. In fact, the complete flow can be exercised. But I would recommend you to use 3. There are 3 good tools which are industry-based software. Industry also uses. Number 1 is Cadence. So in the Cadence, you can design a circuit at front end and back end. So both layout and circuit simulation can be performed. Then you have Synopsys, and Mentor Graphics. So these three tools are there, and all these three tools can do the same thing. That is, at the front end also and back end also, you can design things. Yeah.
Okay.
So we have a licensed copy of these tools in the lab.
Okay. No, but sir, we are in lockdown period, but means college is not open now. So in home, what software we install?
So I don't know about how the lab is going on. Whoever is the lab instructor, that he will tell you how things will work. But yes, for this course, I will provide you student version copies of the software. So for example, for layout design, I will supply a student version copy of layout editor to you. And for circuit simulation also, PSpice either can be downloaded. Student version can be downloaded from the internet, or otherwise I'll provide you AIMSpice and PSpice, both student version copies. And then for VHDL or Verilog, there are again freewares available on the internet. So you can download GHDL. GHDL is an open source hardware description language based software. Then Xilinx also you can download.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello, sir. I have one doubt.
Please ask Satya.
Sir, you said in order to utilize 32-bit OS, you can utilize on single processor, no? So in order to utilize all the 8.
Can you loud up please little bit? I cannot hear your voice.
Sir,
Can you loud up please?
A 32-bit OS can use single processor. You said that, no, sir?
Okay.
Is it audible?
Yeah, it is audible.
You said that 32-bit OS can utilize a single core, no? In your processor, in a chip.
Okay.
So in order to utilize all the 8 cores.
Okay.
So the 64-bit or 128-bit, 128-bit, is it enough to utilize all the 8 cores?
Yeah, it depends upon your operating system. So 64-bit operating system is a standard operating system for a system, right? So hardware has to be controlled by a software. So operating system actually provides that support. That is, whatever interactions you want to do with the hardware, so that those interactions can be provided by an operating system. So this operating system is required. In fact, a particular operating system that is 64-bit at least is required for using all the cores. In fact, if you see this thing, maybe let me share my screen with you, so you will know it better. I'll share my screen with you, and I'll go to the task manager. So there you will find. Can you see my screen now?
Wait, sir. Wait.
Can you see my screen?
No, sir.
No, sir. No.
Okay. Let me share. Oh, so let me share my screen. Yeah. So now, if you go to the task manager, okay, and in the performance, you will see CPUs.
Yes, sir.
Here, right? So I have a i7 CPU. Let me check where it is. Okay, let me see where it is. Okay. So it has 8 logical processors. You can see here.
Yes, sir.
So there are 8 logical processors. Now, I don't know why it is not coming earlier. It used to show the status of all the 8 processors.
Okay.
So maybe let me see where it is. Summary view. So I think in Windows 10, I think they have disabled this thing. In Windows 7, you can see all, the status of all these logical processors.
Okay.
So currently the utilization is 22% only, and all these processors are working in parallel, which cannot be seen here since it's a Windows 10 system. Maybe someday I'll bring a Windows 7 system. So my old system, it shows all those cores, and the status of the performance on all those cores can be seen. In fact, in your system, you can see, if you have a Windows 7, you can see it. Here I don't know
I
why.
think currently nobody is using Windows 7 maximum.
Okay, maybe I'll find out. Then I will show you sometime the status of all those 8 cores. But yes, these 8 cores are working in parallel because I have a 64-bit OS operating system.
Okay.
It has 8 logical processors. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else? Anything else? Any other queries?
Sir,
Otherwise, let us.
what is system on chip?
Yeah. So, a system on chip means a complete system on chip. Yeah. On the same chip, you have a complete system. Complete system means you have a display also, you have a keyboard also. Yeah. You have everything that is required for a, a system. So, a system could be anything. Let us say, if I talk about a digital TV, yeah, TV. So TV requires a transmitter, not a transmitter, a receiver at least, and then many other components. Right? So all those systems, all those things, components are on the same chip. Power supply, everything, memory. You don't have to connect a separate hard disk. Yeah, everything is on the same chip. So that is called a system on chip. So a very good example would be a mobile phone. So mobile phone, everything on the same chip. You have inputs also, keyboard also on the same chip. You have a display also on the same chip. Okay, then you finally encase everything into a outer body. Okay. So a system on chip means a complete system on a chip.
Okay, sir, but every chip has limitations, sir. Like we can accumulate like some trillion transistors like that. Hello. Hello.
So it all depends upon the you as a designer. So what you design, how you design.
Okay, but
So limitations will obviously come
but
if you have stringent specification.
sir, but we are accumulating so many cores, sir, on the same chip, sir. So will there be any effect?
Yeah, so that is the area of research. I mean, there are many effects. So if somebody who is just learning designing,
Okay.
so for him there are many problems. In fact, somebody who is just learning designing, if he designs a chip once, it is likely that chip will not work. He has to design at least 10 times and fabricate it 10 times. Then only maybe out of 10, one time the chip will function. Because there are many issues that can only be learned while getting an experience in designing and finally then fabricating these chips. So there are many issues. We'll talk about some of those issues, some of those important issues in this course.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
If you have no queries, then maybe we can end the meeting.
Sir, I have found some Rebel lectures on YouTube, sir, actually. So which I have to listen.
Yeah, yeah, that is very good, very great. You can listen Rabe lectures because, in fact, we are also following the same book, Rabe, and there are many other good universities which are running the same course. So, as I said, that you can visit their websites and try to learn from them also. Rabe, obviously, he's I think at UC Berkeley, so you will find his
Yes, sir.
lectures. Video lectures also you can find, and these slides also can be obtained from the same website.
Yes, sir. Sir, do I have to listen all 25 lectures of him?
I don't know what has been covered there, but yes, I'm following this book, his book. So whatever has been covered in this book, so and whatever is our syllabus, so we'll try to cover that portion only. But yes, for your own knowledge, you should explore all other options which are available. You can explore. Yeah. So for your own knowledge, so that is very good, actually.
Okay, thank you.
So I think we should end this meeting, and we'll meet tomorrow.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay.